Warning, this podcast has stories of real-life events and true crime that happens every day. These stories may contain adult language and graphic or disturbing details not suitable for everyone. Listener discretion is advised.
132 in Bush, I've got him at gunpoint. Check the left over, we're going to pull evacuation out this side. They're pulling them out.
10-1-1, advise ready for camp.
Welcome to another episode of War Stories. I'm Tom.
No, Chuck.
And we are back with a guest this week, and this is a fun crossover episode. Chuck, we for those of you who have been following, Chuck arranged a cool crossover. So kind of explain to everybody how that all came about.
Yeah, I've seen Steve's stuff for a while now on Instagram and things like that, and seen him post, and I was like, oh, that'd be really great to do a crossover, get another cop podcast with another cop podcast, share stories, go back and forth, cross promote, things like that. So I reached out, and he was happy to do it. So we did 2 guest spots on his show. Tom went first, I went second, and then now we're doing it for him coming onto our show.
So welcome, Steve, from Things Police See, the podcast. You're the host, and you're now our guest. So turnabout is fair play. Welcome to our house now.
Yeah, create all the content we can. I remember the first time I saw you guys pop up in the when I was looking around other police podcasts, and I said, war stories, great. These guys are telling war stories too.
Yeah, it's there's a couple people out there doing it. I picked the name years and years ago because we were always swapping war stories, like I said, and then it turns out like Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North had a podcast called War Stories, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get totally demolished by that.
That's what happened to me.
No, I do better than he does.
Yeah, I was trying to like brainstorm titles, and same thing. I just kept war stories kept going to military.
Yeah,
and I've never even been in the military, so I was like, oh man, I'm gonna look like a real poser if I do that. So yeah, it's a good title. Fits you guys well.
Yeah, we have the military.
What's that?
I said we have the military aspect from me, and then we don't just do war stories though. We do tactical debriefs now.
Yeah, we've gone into people sending us, clips or talking about things that are in the news as far as police work, and we'll debrief it. And instead of just like smack talking it, we smack talk it a little bit, but we'll actually go through the good police work, the bad police work, those kinds of things. And so
because that's the way you learn, you fuck up, you get put on blast. That's how you learn. If you never get put on blast, you'll never learn, and you'll keep doing the same dumb fucking mistakes time and time again. So that's what we want to force feed that shit.
Yeah, and it's fun. It's fun. Absolutely. So anyway, so Steve, welcome to our show, and let's start with how we always start. Why don't you tell our audience what little Steve's journey was to get into law enforcement? Because you're on the East Coast now, but you started out on the West Coast with an agency near and dear to my heart. And I know Chuck's got a lot of connections to it as well, the Los Angeles Police Department. Am I correct?
Right.
The timeline's a little different, but those things are true.
Yeah. So talk to us about how you ended up going through all that.
All right. So I actually started as a cop in Massachusetts, then went to LA and then came back. But a lot of people, I think on one of my social media things, it says Cape Cod kid in LA or something. So it kind of confuses everybody. I got to update my stuff. But so I was very much the kid whose dad was a cop. So growing up, he was a cop on Cape Cod. He would come home for meals in uniform. I was a kid that was like every single time he sat down, can I see your gun? Can I see your gun after dinner? Like that type of thing.
Yeah.
I had all the cap guns, I was like, I loved, it certainly helps. My dad's a good guy. Like he's a good father. He was a good police officer. And my whole life, just seeing him in uniform, being friends with other cops' families, and then just seeing how people reacted to him in public. Like, even if like, hey, you want to go to the dump? We got to go to the dump. We got to go to the hardware store. There was always somebody that knew him or somebody that he helped. Or like on the flip side, there would be times when he'd be like, hey, put your hood up. We're going to go into this part of the store, or we're going to go over here because somebody bad, like that type of thing. That when you're young too is cool. You're like, wow.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Bad guy is loose that my dad at one time put in jail. So I grew up with that. And it was like, as much as I fought it, there was really no other like profession I was really interested in. Like he talked me out of being a criminal justice major when I went to college. He's like, you can be a cop with a high school diploma. And I was always interested in computers. So he's like, why don't you do computers or business or something? And
Sounds like my dad.
Yeah, it's smart, because then you have something else to fall back on.
I gave that same piece of advice. Do not get a degree in criminal justice. Get it in something useful. They'll teach you the criminal justice stuff.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, you'll get it all in 6 months. Boom.
I got that degree in criminal justice.
Yeah, me too.
So
that and $3.50 will get me a cup of coffee.
Right. That's the value.
Yeah. So anyway, go ahead.
So I graduated with a computer degree.
Mm-hmm.
And I graduated from a state school and went and worked in the insurance field for like 2 months. And like I was on break, and it just felt so unfulfilling being like in a business setting.
Like selling insurance?
Yeah, it was like a long-term care type thing. And it was like one of those things when you call and you're like, you have relatives that are like, hey, you don't want to get into this. You don't want to be living off sales. But I was 22, and you talk to the sales manager, he brings you in. He's like, no, he's like, no cold calling. We provide you with people that said they were interested.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'll give it a try, because it was close to home and I didn't want to move somewhere. And Cape Cod's isolated. It's a peninsula that's, it's 2 hours from Boston. It's really it's its own little autonomous thing. So, within a month, the leads were gone. And they're like, the manager's like, grab a phone book, kid, like make some calls. And I'm like, wait, you said we weren't going to cold call people. He's like, well, hey, you're out. You went through your leads and didn't get many sales. So now it's time to start rapping on doors. And I was like, exactly what I don't want to do.
Right.
At all.
Yes.
And I didn't have the personality for it either. Like, I'm friendly and outgoing, but like when I was being trained, I would go to business calls with a senior salesman who was like, legitimately killing it, making a lot of money, winning the trip to the Poconos, the whole deal.
And let's face it, sales is a job you can get rich at with no education.
Absolutely.
Okay. So
and this kid,
we're not knocking salesmen who can do it.
Right. This kid had it going on. He was getting all of that.
Right.
And, but we sat in a house, in like a very nice house. And this guy was, the kid that was training me was arguing with this guy about his financial portfolio and belittling him. And I'm like, I've never seen this sales tag. This is crazy. And the guy was rich, and he was trying to get him to buy an annuity, because for annuities, we got like a 10% cut.
Oh, wow.
And at the end of an hour of belittling this guy, he got the sale. And I was like,
so just by badgering him and beating him down, basically.
Yep. And to me, I was already embarrassed 10 minutes in. I was like, we should just go. This guy's. And then we got in the car, and he was like, if you want to make it, that's how you got to be. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to make it.
It's interesting you say so. Early on in my career, I got a job at a company selling software. We sell software. Okay, I guess I could try that. And it was the same thing. Like, we don't cold call. Yeah, bullshit. You totally cold call. And I ended up after, a couple of weeks in the quality assurance department, basically policing the salespeople, because I wouldn't do the things that were required, or not required, but there were a lot of things that make you a successful salesperson. And if somebody says to you, well, I don't think I need this, and my personality is, well, then don't fucking buy it. Like,
right.
Like, I'm not, like, I'm telling you,
100%.
Right.
I'm running into that shit right now.
And then if you're like, oh, I don't really need it, you're like, okay, call me when you need it. Like, bye. Like,
right.
Like, so that, I totally get it. I can talk here to you. I'm a good communicator. I can talk on the street. I can talk people in and out of handcuffs, in and out of fights. I don't want to sell anybody anything.
Right.
Don't have.
It's not that you're not good at the sales portion of it. It's the allergic to dipshitness and
I'm allergic
idiocracy
to
and
I can't
and bullshit.
So I get you.
Dumb people that just are get on your nerves.
Yeah, so being phony, like you're being phony, and you can feel, you're being phony, and you can't stand yourself. You're like,
100%. Yeah. So you learned you were being a phony, and you decided that was not for you.
Yeah, I was very much the guy picking up the phone, and they'd be like, yeah, we're trying to eat supper. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, sir. Click.
Right. Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Right.
So I was out literally on lunch break at this place, and in the newspaper there was an ad for a natural resource officer, which was kind of unique to Cape Cod, like a local game warden. And for
Okay.
the summers through college, I would come home and I was assistant harbor master for the harbor master in the town I grew up in. So I ran like the patrol
cool.
boats, and people were in the
Was
inland.
was there a little old lady running around solving mysteries who wrote books on the side? Was it like you grew up in Murder She Wrote, man? Like,
Yeah, I did.
You're a harbor master for your summers as a teenager. That's hilarious. Go ahead.
It was a pretty good life. So I did the harbor master gig, and I read this, and I had also, when I was at college, I had went through the part-time academy because, like I said, I still had that itch, and I was like, maybe I'll just be a part-time cop. So at the time, now they don't exist, but at the time, you could go through a 148-hour academy, 6 months, 1 day a week, one Saturday a week, and you would get certified as an intermittent officer, where you'd have authority, but you probably weren't going to get thrown in patrol cars. Probably you were going to be either directing traffic in the summer or being somebody's partner, two-man car.
Right. You were the backup officer. You were the counter report guy, the house mouse.
You're the books. You're like, you can write with me, but you're going to do books and all of the reports and watch my back.
Right. You're like permanent bitch.
Right.
Yeah. You're Robin.
I was like, that was good enough for me. I was like, I'll take it. I'll do it.
The long academy.
I did that academy. It was pretty much a joke. And, but I had it in my resume, and, I saw this job for a natural resource officer, and I read the requirements. It was basically a marine resource officer. So like the lead assistant to the harbor master, who was also the director of natural resources, yada, yada, yada. But it was sworn, and badge, gun, authority, the whole thing. I was like, oh, so this wouldn't be like my summer job where I was wearing khakis. And, it was optional if I told somebody to slow down in the slow no wake zone. This is like, okay, I'd have a truck with blue lights.
Sure.
This seems way cooler. I'm outside.
You could shoot somebody.
Yeah, I could blast a fool like right away.
Like immediately. 21 Jump Street. You're like, they gave me a gun.
That's what I did my first day. I'm like, this is so cool.
Right.
The funny thing is, when you first go on the job, you're like, wow, I have a gun. I can fucking shoot someone, like, if it comes down to it. And it's almost like you're like, oh man, that's kind of like an interesting thing. Like
yeah.
Like a little bit like in the back of your mind, you're like, that's kind of cool, but like kind of, and now you get like longer in your career, like, I don't want to fucking even bring my gun out. Like, I really don't want to do any of that shit. None of it.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that's the thing. Every new cop, you carry your gun. You carry your gun everywhere. And by the time you get retired, like, you do understand. I understand my dad in his 70s now, is retired LAPD. He's like, everybody else is armed. I'm good.
Somebody will take care of me.
That's right.
Yeah. So, yeah. When you're new, you're running around with the full-size duty piece on your hip, off duty.
God, yeah, for sure. So you're now, what's the responsibilities in that? Like, are you inspecting crab pots and lobster traps and like compliance?
Yeah. Like a marine resource officer where I was for natural resource department was, so in the summertime, it's boat patrols. There was a patrol on Lewis Bay, which goes into Hyannis Harbor. And then there was a patrol in Bass River. So you'd have, you'd interview and hire usually kids from like Mass Maritime or some college kids like I did where I was that would run a patrol boat, were good at maneuvering a boat, and, knew how to like drive through the navigational markers, and weren't going to, usually they grew up on the Cape and they all had a boat since they were 10. So you'd hire these kids. They would run the patrol boats, and it was basically about helping people. Like, hey, I'm broken down, or hey, we even had a plane crash one time. We went to that. Like, it was kind of like a rescue / helper role on the water for the part-timers. I supervised them. Go ahead.
I always see this one, like, I guess waterway, and I think it's out where you're at. It's like all those like little dinghies and stuff trying to make it through, and like the water's like crazy choppy, and
I think you just described every tiny.
Well, no, this shit's wild. Like boats capsizing it. Like, if you don't know what you're doing, you'll get capsized. Is that out where I don't know if you've seen it. I don't know where it's called. I forgot the name of it. Something straight.
Well,
but
there is Nauset Inlet and Chatham Inlet, which are bars that form, and they change every year, the shoals. So it is tumultuous there. It's like, white water, depending on what the tide's at. But you're probably thinking of like North Carolina where they test the Navy and the Coast Guard boats. There's an inlet down there where they flip boats intentionally. Oh, okay. Yeah. So not there.
Well, anyway, so you're checking compliance and stuff like that on the harbor,
and hunting and fishing, freshwater fishing. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Oh, cool.
ATVs and cool job for a 22-year-old kid. You know.
Did you arrest people in that job?
We could. We had.
No, but did you?
No, I never did. No, it was kind of
totally amped for like some drunk fisherman in a bar fight, like, and you had to arrest him for,
no, it was
some dude with a fishing knife. I don't know.
It was like we were uniformed and we could, and people had in the past. But it was very much like most of the environmental stuff you would like do a complaint for. It would like, you wouldn't, say, I mean, one time I got a guy in a warrant, because I just ran into him illegally dumping, but that wasn't really like it wasn't like an investigatory like arrest or anything. Like that wasn't common at all.
Right. There was no open charge. It was just, hey,
right,
you've got a warrant. I'm going to take you in. Could you have got him for the open charge for illegally dumping and then secondary for the warrant? Probably, but you're like, this is easier. Let's get him off the waterway.
Yeah, it was,
it's a problem solving charge.
So then hunting, there was, check hunters in the fall and in the spring, and it was a great job. It really was, but it didn't. There's really no overtime. There was no. You couldn't work road jobs or private gigs. So the money, I ended up buying a house, and I still had that itch. Like I was like, okay, I'm like a green cop now. I'm like a harbor master on the Cape, but I still am looking at the police career like, well, if I'm doing this, why not just go to the full-time academy and just let's just do it. Let's just
do it.
Yeah, do the thing. Yeah. So now that I look back, if I somehow could have got paid more for that first job, should have just sat my ass there for my career, because it was a good gig.
100%. Knowing what you know now, you're like, man, I should have just stayed.
Yep.
Great gig. Well, it's the guys at the sheriff's department that in our county that worked. They worked courts in the winter, and they worked the Lake Nacimiento during the summer. So it was shorts and drunk college girls all summer, and probation and parole all winter.
You scratch that itch, man.
You don't have any crackheads spitting on you or anything,
right?
No.
Anyway, so you go to the full-time academy then? And just say, screw it, I'm doing it.
Yep, like a town where actually I went to high school. So we had a regional high school, town of Eastham, just north of Orleans, where I grew up. They needed 2 officers, and they were having trouble finding people. So me and a buddy of mine actually went to high school with applied, and it was hard to get a town to send you to police academy because they have to pay tuition, then they pay you hourly, the whole deal.
Yep. And then if you get hurt, then right. Oh yeah.
Right. It's not like a big city. These places had tight budgets.
No, you put yourself through the academy, and then they go and they start recruiting towards the end.
Right.
Exactly.
So luckily they were hard up enough where they had so many people come and leave because Cape Cod is such a weird place to live. Summers are packed. The town population is quadruple. And then all winter, it's like crickets. It's like quiet. It's like gray. There's nothing. There's nothing to do for recreation because it's all summer based. So there's no no mountains, no nothing. It's just gray and cold. So people would come and work a summer and be like, this is great. It's pretty busy and like it's beautiful, the beaches. And then they do a couple winters and they would just go back to New York or go back to wherever they came from. So this place was having trouble with retention. So they brought me and this other kid in, and they said, your local guys, we have a feeling you'll stay. We will do the full boat academy, everything. We'll train you. You just got it. Not even a written contract. They said, just give us 3 to 5 years. Don't bail on us immediately.
That's awesome. Cause that's like at least saying, we know that we're doing you a solid by putting you through the academy. If you do us a solid by sticking around.
Exactly.
And they just asked you for a handshake commitment. That's cool.
It was cool. And it actually really, my buddy's still there. It's a great department. Now it's been really built up. And a guy that I was a senior patrolman when I came in is now the chief of police. He's a younger guy. He's like 45, but he's like very smart. He's always been good at admin stuff, and the guys like him. So it kind of worked out great. But yeah, I stayed there, and there were phone calls and messages from other chiefs that were like, hey, we got the spot, and if you want to slide over here, we can do X, Y, and Z for you. And I turned them down because they had told me, we're going to invest this in you. Just please don't burn us.
Right.
So I didn't. I stayed there.
What I think to do.
Yeah, I told him I won't leave here for another police job. Put it that way. If I leave, it will be for something different, or I'll be moving out of state. And that's
what. So then you moved out of state.
Right. I did 10 years, 4 years natural resources, 10 years with that PD, and then we really got, my wife and I just got. I don't know if you know what the whole story. I don't want to drone on, but we just got like wanderlust. Like we were born and raised in the same towns, grew up there on this peninsula. And like at nighttime, we would sit and talk about like, wouldn't it be cool if like, because we owned our house, we had a mortgage, but we owned it. We're like, we could rent this place so easy. And what if we just, went cross country and found a place, or, live somewhere else in the country for one time in our lives, like just do something.
Just say you did.
Right.
Yeah. We did it. We made it. So I ended up online. I sat down and I put in an application I was looking for something police parallel, like, okay,
adjacent.
That would like my skill. Like, okay, I'm a cop. So what can I do?
All cops feel like work, security work.
Right. We all feel like we can't do anything else. So I'm like, I gotta have something close to it.
Right.
But there's a lot we can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with what we learn. So I saw the LAPD background position, and it was civilian, and I'm like, I'll apply to that. Why not? And it's a city application. It was like 15 pages. I'm like, it took forever. I got a response, and I'm sure they saw my address and were like, no, this is reserved for like LAPD guys that got injured or are retired, or local agency guys that are still in the area. So they wrote back and said, I'm on I think I took a test, they had a weird aptitude test thing, and they said, you're on the list. We'll let you know. And I didn't let that stop me. We still rented the house. We got in our camper, and we took 40 days to go across the country, stopped at all Nashville and Texas and all the places.
The Griswold family.
Yeah. Graceland, the Grand Canyon, everything we wanted to see and hadn't seen. We did that. And this is all on our life savings. We're going, and we just had where I was like, listen, we're two able-bodied people. I'm a hard worker. I have a college degree. I have a resume. I have good references. There's no way that we can't do this and land on our feet. There's just no way. It has to work. I have to believe it works. And if it doesn't, we can always come back with our tail between our legs and live in my parents, above their garage until the lease runs out on the house, move back in, and the PD would still take me back because they said they would. So that's what we did. We pulled in.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was. I don't regret it at all. Amazing. Life experiences. I mean, we decided on Southern California because we had a friend that lived out there and we had visited. And this is 2016. And we pulled into San Dimas, a campground in San Dimas, and we woke up in the morning when our trip was finally over, and it was like early December, and it was like snow-capped mountains, palm trees, and we were like, this is unbelievable. This is every bit they said it would be. This is incredible.
Southern California is, for people who have never been there, it is eye-opening the first time you can see palm trees and snowy mountains and the beach. And I always tell people that living in California is like being in a relationship with a really hot but abusive girlfriend.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because then eventually you're gonna go to South LA, East LA, Palmdale, Lancaster, and you're like, these places are terrifying. Everybody looks like they want to hurt me.
Exactly.
Hey.
You did get hired.
Some of us still live in these places.
So you get hired, you become a background investigator, a civilian background investigator.
Yep.
And then do you ever transition to sworn?
No, I don't. I did 2 years there, and they were like, I would get my chops busted because I was like 36. They're like, hey, there is a, you could go through the state and get a waiver, and you might not be able to work at LAPD, but you could, once I made friends with people, they're like, hey, we like you, you're a good guy. We could get you in a job at there's one real nice city up against the mountains, little town, I forget the name of it, La Madre, but they're always looking for people.
Oh yeah, there's like Monrovia, there's Claremont, there's all these little right in the foothills of LA.
Exactly. And they're like, you could get right in there. And I was like, you know what? This is pretty good. I'd never had like a real office job for any amount of time. And the thing about backgrounds too is I got to go to backgrounds and I was working with like legends from LAPD. Like guy that's next to me was robbery homicide for 42 years, Jay Moberly.
Oh,
and the stories he had and the he solved a quadruple homicide when he was on robbery homicide and just and then like the supervising detective for the O.J. Simpson trial was the desk down from him, Ron Phillips. So he just the guys are awesome. They were so cool and they were so old school. They would be like, they'd get their stuff done. They were excellent investigators. They trained me. My buddy Pat Buchanan, he was a captain in Covina, and then he worked there. Such a smart guy. They trained me how to do it. And then some days it would be like, hey, we're going to lunch. And I'd be like, oh, where are we going? They're like, oh, we're going to go to, I forget the Olivera Street in LA.
Oh, Olivera Street. Yeah.
We go for like 2.5 hours. And I'm like, guys, I think we should get back. And they're like, nah, don't worry about it, kid. This is fine. This is how we roll. So we'd be down there eating lunch. And I just got to see, and besides that, you made your own schedule. So if you're like, all right, I got some paperwork I got to put together for backgrounds, the office, but I'm going to make these days my field days. And then you could just at will leave the office and go do your field stuff, knock on doors and all that other stuff. And I leaned on those guys big time for like, cause I didn't really know LA. I know South LA and East LA because I've heard of them.
But you know them by the movies they've been in.
And I would show the guys like where I was going and they would be like, either like have somebody, this is a place that we go with 2 people, or, just be careful. Cause I had a lot of candidates be like, hey, I really want to do this, but my neighbor is in a gang and he also sells drugs. So if you knock on his door and tell him I'm applying to LAPD, going to be a problem for my family. So we would literally take the questionnaire that we would leave if no one was home and change it to like a different department at the top, just city worker.
Like smart works or
just to protect the candidates. Cause I mean, a lot of them were good kids. They were just like trapped in these neighborhoods and like in fear of their neighbors who they would then be arresting later, so.
And so then you get the itch to go back to police work. Is that?
Yeah, I did that. And unfortunately there's a big battle at LAPD backgrounds for pay. Like we weren't retaining anybody. And they kind of had it made because for a long time, it was just guys who had pensions already coming back for something to do. So while I was there, which is unbelievable, I got appointed to be a B2, which is a team leader for investigations, because the floor was captains, chiefs, lieutenants, special agents from the federal government, all people that had no interest in supervising anybody because they'd already done it and it's a nightmare. So they were like, well, we like Steve. Steve is tolerable. And if he was they probably thought if he was our B2, we could just push him around.
Boss him around. He's a good dude. He'll be a fine boss. He'll listen to us when we tell him what to do. Steve's the guy.
Yeah, exactly. So I end up taking that little test and I pass and I get promoted. And then the pay increase is like nothing. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is bad. Like at the time I'm working there and I'm also working security jobs. Ron Phillips hooked me up with his friend's company. So I'm doing like Harry Winston, delivering high-end, like $10-15 million worth of jewels to celebrities in Beverly Hills. And I also did, I got to do some security gigs. Like I did LL Cool J at the MTV Movie Awards. I got to go like backstage with him. And so I'm doing all
the LAPD gigs that you get because all those people live there.
Yep, exactly.
So Oscars.
I'm hoping to like not have to jump at these calls when they come in and like have my salary increase. And it really wasn't there. And the problem with that is they would hire people in, and if the person was a good negotiator and they really needed to fill the spot, they would give them the money. So you would have one investigator is making 90,000 base and you're at 69. Same job.
That's wild.
But they'd be like, well, he was a detective in Glendale and he worked some really big cases. I'm like, listen, you don't need that kind of brain for this kind of work. Like we're turning out the same product, baby.
Correct.
but this guy also has $160,000 pension from Glendale, and now you're
Right.
paying him 90 grand as well. It was just, it was contentious.
Right.
And I had a buddy who supervised an SIU department for insurance company fraud investigation.
Sure.
And I reached out to him, and he was like, yeah, we'll pay you X, Y, and Z, take home car. We'll pay for the internet to your house, make your own schedule, give you a laptop. So I then left there and did that for 2 years. And that was a fantastic job. I mean, they paid for all expenses, book your own travel. I saw all of Southern California from Fresno to the Mexican border. It was incredible.
Wow. So you saw Mexico.
Yeah, I saw Mexico fearfully from the safe
Fresno to
side.
the Mexican border is northern Mexico.
Right. Right. So
I think that's all Sereno territory, actually. So there you go.
It was there was times when my GPS was being weird, and I was looking at Mexico on my left, driving along, and it was telling me to take lefts, and I was like, I
can't.
I'm not going. I don't think so. I think that's a checkpoint.
Yeah.
Also, now, how long have you been sworn? How long have you been doing you've been back at law enforcement?
3 years.
Okay.
So I have a total of 16 years in law enforcement.
Right.
Wow. Okay.
It would have been 20 if I hadn't taken a break.
You took
Now,
for your sabbatical.
when you left and you came back, did everything like when you left pause and when you came back, it just picked right back up? So it's putting back into your pension. That way you can do your 20 or 30 and then you can pull the pin.
Yeah, I never touched my pension, so I'm still grandfathered in. So
Yeah.
Yeah, in Massachusetts, on the books at the time, they would give you a 5-year absence with each year adding training to making you certified again. So if you're out a year, then it was like you just need CPR, first responder, and firearms. But I was out almost 5 years. So I had to do 160 hours of classroom, like in-service training, CPR, firearms, first responder class, and law updates, which was like drinking from a fire hose, because Massachusetts, between the marijuana stuff and the juvenile laws, completely rewrote them. So I was reading
4 years you were gone.
Every class I sat down and I was like, oh my gosh, still I don't know what's going on.
Basically, you can't arrest for this, you can't arrest for that, and
Right.
you shall notify a parent and give them phone calls.
Right. Just basically do nothing. Call Department of Social Services.
100%.
So
now you're back on the job.
Mhm.
And I'm assuming you're happy to be back. I mean, ultimately, let's face it, like it's a job like no other.
Yeah, it is really I don't want to be corny here, but you really do get it's a job that you love and hate. It really is, because
100%.
there are times when you sign on and you're like, I just don't want to do nothing. I hope nothing happens. I'm exhausted. I've worked 70 hours. I can't stand it. I can't stand people. If I get another drunk idiot, that type of thing. And there's other times when you're doing some stuff where you're like, oh, that was amazing. Like that really helped somebody, or like, man, I can't believe I had the balls to grab that guy when he had the edged weapon or whatever, and it's like, this is great. And I even talked to, like, I have childhood friends I grew up with. And one of them was even when we were in kindergarten, he wanted to be rich. He wanted the car, he wanted these, and he is now. He's a full partner in an equity firm in Boston. So he's
good for him.
Millionaire, and has a Maserati. But when you're having beers and just talking, the mystique of police is in every man. Like it doesn't matter how much money they make. It's like, man, what's that like? Like, you have a job that, like, to most men really matters. It's like you have a job where he's like, if you're just dealing with numbers and making corporations money, at some point it's nice because it affords you a nice lifestyle. But do you feel like fulfilled? Do you feel like I'm doing something for the community, or I'm making a difference in some way in people's lives, actually?
There's that element of when Billy Crystal in City Slicker says, I sell air, right? He sold commercial. He said, I sell air. I sell nothing, right? At least architects have a building they can point to and go, I designed that, right? So for people who, especially I've noticed for people who deal in like things that are like money, like numbers, like concepts, like education, non-tangibles, right? Construction guys, they can like, I built that house. What's
Absolutely. The trades are the same thing.
Trades are very much, I did that, right? You point to something, I did that. well, what are you? I'm a crab fisherman. I caught $800,000 worth of crab in October.
Right.
Oh, wow. That's, you have something to say you did.
Yeah, and I think that's in every man. Like I think every man has a mission. They want to have we want to have a mission, something to accomplish,
It's deep seated. It goes back to when you were children playing cops and robbers in the backyard.
Oh yeah.
And not too many people are like, I want to be the robber. Like, I want to be the cop. I want to be the cops. I want to help the helpless person.
Right.
It's that whole sense of I need to take care of other people and help them and protect them. And I think that is in most men. And it's crazy because you have a friend that's a millionaire. I have a friend that is very well off. I do not know his financial situation, but I know he owns his own company and has he has a lot of money. And he always was like, oh, man, I wish I was a cop. I wanted to do it so bad, but they didn't take me. And I'm like, well, but look what you do now, bro. Like,
it doesn't matter, dude.
They just have that itch.
So here was a question that was asked to me. Would you do the job if you wore a pastel polo shirt, khaki Dockers, and drove a Camry? And the answer is no. No. That sounds terrible. No, right?
Well, unless they have a badge on a gun.
They gave us a badass uniform. They gave us a badge. They gave us a utility belt, just like Batman, right?
Right.
They gave us the Batmobile because we got all the gadgets, and the only thing we don't have is the caltrops that drop out of the back, the smoke screen, and the oil slick,
Right.
And with spike strips, we kind of do have the caltrops now. So the job is cool.
Yeah.
The job is cool. The rest of the shit that goes with the job sucks ass.
Yeah.
Like working for cities or commands that don't like cops.
You're right. I always told people I do the police work for free. They pay me to do the paperwork and deal with the political bullshit.
Right.
Chasing bad guys. If you told me right now, hey, the police are going to go chase a bad guy a block from you, and they're asking if you want to help, there is no world in where I turn that down. Right? Hey, the police are going to terminate a pursuit in front of your house, and if you're willing to help them take the suspect into custody, then we're not going to pay you or anything. And if you get hurt, it's on you, but you can come out and kick some ass with them. It's a no-brainer.
Right.
I'm doing it. I'm kicking the ass. I'm chasing the bad guy. I'll do that for free.
Absolutely. Yeah. When that stuff starts piling on, when it's like, when you're getting directives from City Hall, like say you're on day shift and there's all kinds of admin day shift going on, and all of a sudden you get these little jobs and you're like, you're being told by a lieutenant, but at the same time you're like, this is not police work. Like, contractually, do I have to do this? Because it sounds like out of my scope of what I should be doing.
Do you guys call them apes?
No.
Acute political emergency. There we go. I got an ape. It's an acute political emergency.
Never heard that before.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
Yeah. Anyway, so Steve, I was going to say, Steve, that we're running out of time and we haven't even gotten to your stories, but Chuck's got a question for you. So,
yeah, just when you took your 4-year hiatus, your break, and then you came back and you did all the schooling, your first day on patrol or the first day you got back into a black and white and you're out there patrolling, was it like a culture shock almost, or was it just right back into the mix and you're just like riding a bike and you're like, like I hadn't ever left?
I felt a little bit, I wasn't sure I was going to make it back because the police reform had started in Mass at this time. And they were, as I was getting up to date on my training, they were telling me, your gap in service might've been too long. They might not accept your certificate. Like they were saying stuff like that to me. So I was feeling like this is maybe not going to happen. Maybe this is like just a pipe dream to get back into this. And I'm riding around with another person kind of being like lightly broken in because I'd had such a break. And I felt weird. I felt like an imposter because of that. I felt like I'm doing something for nothing maybe. And maybe I'm not even going to be able to hold on to this because I initially was so proud to have the badge on the chest again and be in uniform and be like, I'm back, baby. Let's do it. And then, but I do remember specifically when that all ultimately they had to adhere to the laws on the books. And when I came back, the laws that were given to me and that were still in place preceded any kind of reform. So they're like, no, these people can, as long as there's nothing in his record, his background's good, then there's no reason not to let them back. This is how we've always done it. We have not changed anything yet. We're not going to like, retroactively boot cops when we can't even get cops. Like the guy wanted to come back.
Right.
What are we doing?
Guys, you realize that he wants to come back, right? Shut up. Say yes.
Right.
Say take him.
Right.
He's not a felon.
He seems kind of normal.
Sell drugs the entire time he was gone. I mean, I know he went to California, but
right. So we know he got high every day, but besides that,
right. Besides that. So the floor is yours, man. I'm curious to know if your better stories were from being before you left or after you left, because obviously the country went through a very big shift.
Yeah, dude. And the one thing, now you say that the thing I've noticed is where I work now is a small regional department that does 2 towns and consider kind of the hill towns of Western Mass, and they combined because of police reform and not being able to have 2 separate departments. They combined, and these places it's not a big place, and the mental health stuff is like quadruple what I remember from working like in a populated place. Like it's friggin' everywhere. Like we used to do, you guys are 5150s. We call them section 12s, involuntary taking of somebody. Right. My old job, like in the summer, it also was a small place, but like in the summer, there was like 40,000 people in town. The town was only, I think it's like 13 square miles. Everybody's on vacation. We only had like 16 cops. We used to be allowed to hire an army of summer cops to help, but then that kind of got taken away. So we were busy and there was a lot of craziness going on, but there was like doing it section 12 was kind of rare. Like it was kind of like,
it was like last resort kind of
kind of like, are we going to do this? Cause you really had to be like, I'm going to kill myself to the cop. And then we were like, okay, there we go. Section 12.
Right.
But now, I work in a small place in the rural policing, and they come up way more than I thought they would. The mental state of the younger people is destroyed. Like they just don't seem like they can function.
That leads into a really common thing nowadays. It's cool to have mental illness, and like I've seen so many police videos where the people come out and they're like, do you have any issues? Like, well, I have mental illness. You're like, no, like any physical issues to perform like and they just come out and they're like, oh, I have a mental illness. I have this, I have that. And parents are even bringing that up with their kids. And I noticed that, a while back, you'd go to the house for a 5150 or a section 12, like you just said, but you would get there and you'd be like, so do they have any mental problems? Like,
what was that?
Whoa.
I think go ahead. Anyway.
Wasn't me.
And you would get there and then you'd be like, does your kid have any mental illness? Like, yeah, he has a mental illness. You're like, yeah, what does he have? ADHD. And you're like, that's not a mental illness. Stop it. Stop telling your kid they have a fucking mental illness, because then they're going to grow up and they're going to think that they need special treatment or whatever because they have a mental illness. No, they do not have a mental illness. It's not a learning disability. It's just a way that they function.
The next thing you know, the kid will be a lady boy and be like, well, this makes me happy. It's like,
it's crazy. It's the shit that gets fed into these young kids is just, it's wild.
The amount of, so anyway, so you're back, you're the mental health stuff. And I'll tell you this, in the new position and realm that I work in, which is, public service adjacent. Mental health stuff is huge right now. I think there's an element of COVID pushing people a little bit beyond their breaking point. And then there's kids who are unable to regulate because like their parents were losing their minds and just gave up on them. And so for 2 years it's been like Lord of the Flies. So you've got 3-year-olds that are now 5-year-olds who still act like 3-year-olds. Yeah.
And there's no, like, even the schools, like I see the discipline, like it's like, if someone's acting out, it's because past trauma, they can't help it, therefore can't be disciplined. It's like, no, this is a snowball and you're adding to it. Like the kid should have been disciplined probably severely earlier. like really corrected by a parent. But now they're in
Right.
school and nobody will discipline the kid because he's got
Somebody failed to get the ass whooping they so desperately needed.
Yeah, I'm like, did the kid go to Vietnam? Something I don't know. Like he doesn't have PTSD. You know,
Yeah.
it's like he's just a brat, and now he's completely out unchecked. So it's like every level I see when I'm working that that these things are just like I said, it's like a snowball. They're just getting bigger and badder, and it's terrible, man.
So now, what kinds of things beyond the sad, depressing state of the mental health of this country? What kinds of things are unique to the New England police officer? Because this is something I've always been fascinated by. I grew up in LA. My dad was LAPD. I mean, all the badges that I've ever seen were based on the LAPD style of, the shield with the building on it and the this and that. Right? Okay. East Coast policing is very different, right?
Yeah.
There's a big difference in style and stuff like that. So what kinds of things do you face or are you facing as an East Coast police officer that West Coast police officers just wouldn't understand?
I don't know if there's anything that contrasting. What I noticed about the two places, just from living in both of them, and we do have Boston, which is Boston Metro is like 5 million people, like Boston, the city surrounding it.
Sure, but it's still East Coast. It's like
that we shoot way less people than major cities on the coast.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. And I'm not sure why, but I think I had a class once with an attorney and we were complaining that we're charging people and the courts here are letting them off. And his point was, well, California does that too, but his point was, let me give you the stats for 3 strike states. And he gave us an officer shot for 3 strike states versus Massachusetts, which was softer.
Right.
And he's like, this is why you're not being shot in getting in shootings. It's because the court systems are so different.
And there is an element of that 3 strikes law that turns people. I mean, one of the guys that, tried to kill me and my partner, he's a 3rd striker. And he said, if I'm going to go out,
going back,
I'm going to go out. And
classic line. I ain't going back alive, boys.
Right. Well, okay. So there's your point, right? If you're never going to take me alive. That's like the 30s, right? You're never going to take me alive,
copper. See?
And then you go back to the old West. Hey, you're going to have to carry me out. Like if that's a big trope, it's because we've been saying it as men.
Right.
For hundreds, King Leonidas they're going to darken the sky with their arrows. Well, then we'll fight in the shade. It's like,
it's no better scene than when he kicks that guy in the well. Like, kick him in the well.
This is Sparta. Boom.
So it goes back to like what you were saying about the people that get into police work and your personality and what, spoke to you about doing something and about it being fascinating to other people. I often say that if you look at people who get out of the military, there's a large percentage of them that either go into police work or the prison system. Right. And the need or propensity to do violence against, someone else, to test yourself, to be put in situations where it's life or death and make a difference, right? That exists in so many men and some women, but really is so prevalent in men. And then we get into these professions. And then if you take that energy and you don't channel it the right way early on, right? That's why dirty cops are really dirty.
Right.
It's why somebody could have a service record in the military, but they had a shitty childhood growing up. And then when they get out of the military, they're back to chaos and no structure and no guidance. And then they just go to prison. Right.
Yeah. And they look for brotherhood in the wrong places too. Sometimes.
Right.
Like in motorcycle clubs, gangs.
Bikers, yeah.
Well, that was the Hells Angels were a result of World War II. They're literally named after a bombing squadron from World War II because the bikers came home or the soldiers came home and didn't have the same camaraderie and the same brotherhood and that same like pucker factor of holy shit, the adrenaline rush of I could die today. Me and my brothers are going to live on the edge, right? That was gone. So what do? Well, they ride motorcycles with no helmets. They get into bar fights. That the Hell's Angels are pretty much a club born out of PTSD, I would bet.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
You know, it's funny that you say that the statistic between 3-strike states and then like the non-3-strike states. It's funny because I had a Broly that was like, I'm not going back, and we ended up getting into a fight and put his face through some tile, and you know, stuff happened, and he went to the hospital and went to back to prison. But that was his big thing. He's like, I'm not going out without a fucking fight. You're not taking me. I'm not willingly submitting to your arrest. Go fuck yourself, because I'm not going back to prison, or at least I'm not going back without a fucking fight. And I was like, all right, is what it is. That makes it's interesting.
The crooks need to realize that they want us to go back to old school policing. The crooks want us to go back.
They just want an ass whooping, and they want.
Yes, right. We're okay.
Right.
We'll take the 3 strikes law off the table, but here's what we want in return. If you're sentenced to death, you're going to die within 6 months. We're not like stretching out death row any longer than we
shit.
have, right? So if you get sentenced to death, you roll the dice, bro. Right? We're not going to 3 strikes you. But if at some point you roll the dice and you come up snake eyes and you get sentenced to death, you'd be dead in 6 months. That's first and foremost. Second, if the cops come to whoop your ass and they whoop your ass because you did something stupid, all that has to happen is you did something stupid. The ass whooping that comes after that belongs to you. You own it, right? Now, that being said, if the cops whoop your ass and you go to jail, that's it, right? They whooped your ass. You got what was coming to you, right? Mm-hmm. That I just can't explain that. Criminals would society would really like it if we went back to the police work of, say, I don't know, somewhere around the 30s.
Yeah. Well, my dad used to stand in front of a judge in like I think he started like the late 70s, and they had a local judge that was kind of like that. If a guy stood up there and he had the bag beat out of him and he was complaining, the judge would go, "Oh, what did you do to get yourself involved with the police? Like, why did you catch this beat?" He'd actually ask him, "Why did you catch this beating?"
Yeah.
And then he would be like, "Listen, why don't you not get in trouble anymore?" But the same token, my dad said a lot of them would charge if they went to arrest somebody and the guy pulled away or tried to wrestle with them. The same judge would say, "Listen, did the guy deck you?" "Well, no, he just pulled away and pushed me," or whatever. He goes, "Well, no one likes their freedom being taken away."
Right.
And I'm not going to sit here and listen to resisting arrests for every single arrest you throw at us.
No.
So the judge would throw that out. So he was like very just common sense, old school, small town judge.
Yeah.
Like right down the middle type of thing.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Right. If the cops go overboard, I'm going to get it in their ass. Right. And if the crooks do something stupid and deserve it, I'm going to get in their ass. And I
like that way.
That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
I mean,
it worked.
It did work. When you had hanging judges.
Too many feelings now.
No, yeah. Oh God! Don't even get me started. You should come on Locker Room if you want to talk about feelings, and I'm going to hold you to it. You volunteered. You did say, and there's no takebacks.
Hey, so you guys gave me 2. I owe you 2.
That's true. Chuck and I gave you an episode each, and so we have to get an episode of Locker Room.
I'd be happy to, man. Absolutely.
So we'll see what's going on. I don't think we're going to have Locker Room this week because of Thanksgiving, but we might.
I love an away game. No editing, nothing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Right. You're all about this episode because you don't do any heavy lifting, right?
It's great.
Yeah, I got done with my episode on your podcast, and I just turned off my computer and walked away.
You're like, don't I need to do something else?
Although I did have to. You forced me to get involved in social media and do sharing and comments and all that kind of stuff. So I owe you one for that. It's been a good time, and we always end with a dedication. But I think Chuck's going to provide the dedication this week. Am I correct, Chuck?
Yeah, I have one. It's Senior Police Officer George Pastor. Senior Police Officer George Pastor was shot and killed during a hostage barricade at 9308 Bernoulli Drive at about 4:10 a.m. Patrol officers had initially responded to a residence of a domestic violence call involving a stabbing shortly before 3 a.m. Arriving officers located an injured victim outside of the home and learned there were 2 more injured victims inside. As officers attempted to enter the home to rescue the victims, the suspect inside opened fire, causing the officers to retreat. The agency SWAT team arrived at the scene and attempted a hostage rescue at about 4:30 a.m. The suspect opened fire on the SWAT team, fatally wounding Officer Pastor. and wounding a second officer. The officers returning fire killed him. Killing him. The 2 other victims were also found deceased inside the home. Officer Pastor has served at the Austin Police Department for 4 years. He is survived by his wife, 2 stepsons, and parents. He was 38. His tour was 4 years, and his badge number is 9097.
So now Chuck had a dedication, but we also like to give our guests a chance to dedicate their episode to whomever they choose. And I understand you have somebody that you would like to dedicate your episode to.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know him that well, but we did work at the kind of neighboring agencies, and he was killed in the line of duty when I was in LA, and it was shocking to see it. Young guy. He was a K-9 officer for Yarmouth PD. His name was Sean Gannon. He, in post, he was made Sergeant Sean Gannon. He was survived by his wife, and I know she had a really hard time, obviously, with it, and she got a lot of support from Yarmouth PD and surrounding communities. But just a really, I only met him a few times. Really nice, positive, hardworking young cop. He was searching an attic for a fugitive, and from talking to other K-9 guys, because I'm not a K-9 guy, but they tell me attics are the absolute worst, because you don't know. At some point you need to put
somebody's got to stick their head up there.
You got to put your head up there, and Sean did, and he paid the ultimate price for it. The bad guy is in jail, and they actually did, out of it came Narrows Law, which enables police K-9s to get medical aid from I believe first responders on the scene and stuff like that, because his dog was also shot and survived. Right. So Narrows Law is because of Sean's death. But yeah, I would dedicate it to him. God bless him and his family.
Oh, rest easy, brothers. We've got it from here. And that's always the not fun part of the show. But I think the best part is when we tell people how they can find Stephen Gould and the Things Police See podcast. Because for our audience, granted, we know there's crossover. We've gotten several comments that have said, "Oh, my 2 favorite police podcasts."
Yeah, that's great.
Chocolate and peanut butter finally meeting, right?
I agree. The best part of any podcast is when I plug my podcast.
Right.
100%. Yeah. ThingsPoliceSee.com has everything from the show there. The episodes are there, but you can find the podcast anywhere podcasts are available: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, anything like that. And like you said, Tom, the emails I get are like, can you do more interviews or like whatever? So it's like, there's not a, we're not oversaturating the market. Like they want more. So it's kind of a perfect partnership where you guys have similar things going on. And my hat's off to you for doing like extra, like doing, I do Cops in the News once in a while, and I really enjoy the hell out of it, but I just don't have the time to, you guys got 2 guys, which is great. It's just me. So I can't really produce it all the time, but you guys are kind of venturing into other aspects, which is great, because people love the interviews, but they also love to hear you go off the cuff and hear your ideas and stuff and how you react to news. So
let's just start our own network.
Yeah, we should.
Let's just start our own network. We'll start our own version of the Daily Wire, but it's for first responders.
Get my buddy in Boston and be like, dude, this is just like if you're a cop, except you're just funding our network.
Right.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Give him one of my badges.
100%.
I will get him a badge.
Hell yeah.
I will 100% get him a badge. I don't know.
One badge? How about 3 badges, buddy? 3 badges.
Yes, 3 badges. Totally. Start our own network.
Yeah. Just need $250,000.
Do you do social media?
Yeah, I mean, I do Instagram. Yeah, good point. Sorry.
So people can find you on.
Worst promoter. Yeah.
I am on Twitter. We are on, this show is on Twitter, and we don't ever tweet.
It's X.
Whatever. There's a reason that Twitter rhymes with litter.
Yeah.
Because it's all fucking trash.
I'm on Twitter, and I've never had, probably like you've experienced, like it's for famous people. I've never had any luck or any attention. But Instagram, again, you guys are killing it. I'm at Things Police See for Instagram. I'm wicked late to the game. I started the account.
There's that East Coast. I was waiting for it. I was waiting.
Oh, the
when
wicked.
you were gonna get wicked.
Wicked late. So my just out of pure being oblivious, but I'm on there now, and I'm posting stuff, and I posted clips of Tom, and there will be clips of Chuck on there as well. So Instagram, and then also there's a Facebook group that you can join.
So, cool. So this will be out This is Monday's episode. So for those of you listening to this, we're recording this on Saturday. We have yet to finalize whether we wanted to do a Thanksgiving episode this week, because we normally release on Thursdays, but Thursday is Thanksgiving.
Downloads will be down.
We might go live on Wednesday night before Thanksgiving and give the things we're thankful for. We're not sure. So keep watching. Locker Room Live is Wednesday nights at 8:30 Pacific time for those of you who want to join us there, because we've still got people reaching out. And follow us on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff, because if you do, and you hit, I always feel so stupid being hit that like and subscribe, that I hate
Juicy
it.
algo.
Yeah, right. So, but if you do follow us, you do like us, you do subscribe, whatever, you will get the notifications when we do, like, this episode's not live, but we do some interviews live. We do our debriefs live, and we do Locker Room Live. So for Locker Room Live, you can pretty much count on joining us Wednesday nights at 8:30 Pacific time. And then Chuck, how else can they find us? What else can they do to support us?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you everyone for listening. If you like today's podcast, please help support us by liking and sharing, or hitting that like button, that notification bell button, all that happy mumbo jumbo bullshit. Yeah, smash it. I don't care.
Smash that button.
Please, seriously, follow us, like us, and share all that stuff. Our Instagram is @war_stories_official, and our Facebook is @war_stories_podcast. Please like and share all that stuff there. We have a link in the bio to everything: our Facebook, our website, our YouTube, all of that good stuff. If you want to find us at our website, it's www.warstoriesofficial.com. We have some merch there. And if you think you have a story that you want to tell and be featured on the show, go to booking.warstories@gmail.com. I can get you booked. We're always looking for veterans, law enforcement, firefighters, medics, but also corrections, dispatchers, and nurses. If you have a friend who you think would be a great fit, let them know about us. Give them our booking email, and hook us up and link us, and I'll get them booked for the show. Thank you for the support. Stay safe.
That's right. And just to solve that mystery from earlier, it was a pop-up. I have multiple windows open while I'm controlling.
I hate that.
And one of them started playing an ad or a video in the background, and I didn't have that page muted. So
happened to me today on an interview.
Yeah, see, there you go. So warts and all, man, we do the show warts and all. Very, very few edits, especially when you watch it live. So join us live. Steve, again, it was a good time.
Thank you for having me, man. Had a blast.
So we're gonna have to owe you one, because you have to come back for another War Stories to actually share.
I know. I never told the story.
We had so much fun just talking about how we got into, like, we didn't even touch on how you started podcasting or anything like that.
Dude, it flew by. I can't believe it's been an hour.
We're late, if anything. So
yeah. And you have a very interesting, like, how you became a cop and then left and came back. Like, that's not it's not normal for a lot of people. So it's very interesting, and people love to hear that stuff.
You left and came back. It's like the mob, man. You got out and they pulled you back in.
What a dummy.
I know. All right. So Steve, you have to come back, do another War Stories, share a story this time, because we ran out of time today. We'll let you know. The Locker Room gig is usually we'll give you a heads up and say, okay, this Wednesday 8:30, and then you just send you the link and you join us, and then it's a free for all, man. So bring your A game. Also bring some jokes. Bring some jokes with you.
Got it.
We do big joke energy for the last couple of minutes.
Got it.
And make each other groan or laugh, one of the two. Chuck, you got anything? I know you gave our big closing, but
no, just thanks for the support. And if you really like, so if you want for us to debrief stuff, send it to us. Don't just send it to on Instagram. But if you do send it on Instagram, please double tap and send it to either mailbag or booking. That way we can have it and we can look at it, because things get lost in that.
We get
direct
so
message.
many messages on direct message with people just sending us silly videos. If it's a legit good video that you want us to debrief, it'll get lost in the DMs. So you got to make sure you send it to us an email too, or send us an email referencing your DM, something other than just a DM. So all right. And until our next episode, come home with your shield or on.